From censors losing their minds to real horses getting punched, here are weird facts you didn't know about Blazing Saddles. It all fell apart on day one. The role of the Waco Kid, the washed-up, whiskey-soaked gunslinger who becomes the heart of the movie, was originally supposed to go to Gig Young. He wasn't just any actor. Young was an Academy Award winner with decades of Hollywood experience. Known for his smooth looks and serious presence, on paper, he was perfect. The studio loved him. He had the credibility to balance Mel Brooks' absurd humor. But the moment he walked on set, something was wrong. As soon as the cameras rolled, his hands started shaking. His voice cracked. The cast and crew thought maybe he was doing a bit, adding a nervous twitch to his character. Then, mid-scene, he collapsed. It wasn't acting. Gig Young was going through alcohol withdrawal, and he was in no shape to perform. Within hours, the production team realized they couldn't continue with him. According to the Saturday Evening Post, Young had to be pulled from the project immediately for medical reasons. Mel Brooks didn't panic. Instead, he walked off set, found a quiet corner, and picked up the phone. There was only one person he trusted to save the movie, Gene Wilder. The two had worked together before on The Producers, and Brooks knew Wilder could handle both comedy and heart. When Mel called, Gene didn't ask for the script. He didn't ask about pay or schedule. He just said, "When do you need me?" Brooks told him, "Tomorrow."
It's yours coming!
Ring out the church bells!
Strike up the band!
By the next morning, Wilder was on a plane. He arrived at the set tired, jet-lagged, and totally unprepared. He hadn't even read the lines, but when the camera started rolling, something magical happened. Wilder's calm, tired energy worked perfectly for the Waco Kid, a man who's seen too much and laughs at the madness around him. Before a single frame of Blazing Saddles was shot, the movie already had Richard Pryor's fingerprints all over it. Mel Brooks brought him in as a co-writer, not just to punch up jokes, but to give the story real bite. Pryor wasn't afraid to go where others wouldn't. His humor wasn't just funny, it was dangerous, sharp and brutally honest about race, power, and hypocrisy. And Blazing Saddles needed that. At the time, most Hollywood comedies stayed safe. They made audiences laugh without making them think. Pryor changed that. He wrote lines that made people uncomfortable, and then forced them to laugh at what made them uncomfortable. His words gave the movie a raw edge, something that went far beyond slapstick. Mel Brooks didn't just want Pryor's words, he wanted Pryor himself. Brooks fought to cast him as the lead, the black sheriff who shocks the racist town of Rock Ridge. Pryor had the talent, the timing, and the charisma to carry it. But the studio didn't see it that way. They saw a man with controversy attached to his name, a man known for his wild stand-up and off-screen antics. They got scared. Executives at Warner Brothers worried that Pryor would be too unpredictable, too controversial for mainstream audiences. So they said no. The role went to Cleavon Little instead, and he was incredible. Smooth, confident, effortlessly cool. He brought something new to the character. But the soul of the film, that sharp, fearless tone, that was all Richard Pryor. His influence shaped how the movie handled race. When the studio saw Blazing Saddles for the first time, they didn't laugh. Not once. After weeks of shooting and months of editing, Mel Brooks finally invited Warner Brothers executives to watch the rough cut. They came in expecting a silly Western spoof. What they got instead was a politically charged, vulgar, violent, racially explosive satire that broke every Hollywood rule. There were slurs, fart jokes, gunfights, men punching horses, governors acting like fools. It was madness. When the lights came up, the room was silent. Executives sat frozen in their chairs, tight-lipped and pale. They didn't know what they had just seen, but they knew it was trouble. According to Wikipedia and multiple sources, Warner Brothers executives genuinely considered burying the film. Their plan was simple: quietly shelve it, never release it, and pretend it never happened. The test screenings started badly. For the first 20 minutes, the audience sat silent. Not a laugh, not a chuckle. Brooks felt the sweat dripping down his back. Executives whispered that it was over. Then came the campfire scene. A group of dusty cowboys sat around a fire, eating beans out of tin plates. Then, one of them lets out a loud, wet fart. Another follows, and another. Within seconds, the whole screen erupted in chaos. Cowboys lifting their legs, faces scrunching up, sound effects echoing like machine guns. The audience exploded. People were laughing so hard they cried. It was the first time in movie history that fart sounds were used as a central joke in a mainstream film. Critics might have called it childish, but for the audience, it was revolutionary. It gave them permission to laugh, not just at the fart joke, but at everything that came after. That one ridiculous, unfiltered moment broke the tension that had held the audience back. When Gene Wilder arrived to save the movie, he made one request: if I do this, I'm not playing it for laughs. Most actors in Blazing Saddles leaned into the chaos, the overacting, the slapstick, the absurdity. But Wilder went in the opposite direction. He played the Waco Kid as calm, detached, and almost ghost-like, a man who had seen too much nonsense to react anymore. His delivery was quiet, dry, and effortless. That choice changed everything. His stillness became the eye of the storm. While everyone around him screamed, fought, and farted, Wilder stayed cool. Every line he delivered hit harder because of it. Instead of mugging for the camera, he let the insanity swirl around him. Mel Brooks later said that Gene's performance gave the movie balance. Without it, Blazing Saddles might have been just another loud, silly parody, but Wilder's presence gave it heart. Before Blazing Saddles ever reached audiences, it had to survive something far scarier than bad reviews: the studio censors. The script wasn't just bold, it was dangerous. It was packed with racial slurs, crude jokes, religious jabs, and even Nazi gags. According to Wikipedia, the censorship team practically went to war with Mel Brooks. They didn't just cut a few lines, they flagged entire pages. At the time, 1970s, Hollywood was still conservative in what it allowed to hit the screen. Racial humor, explicit language, and political digs were all red flags, and Blazing Saddles had all of them, multiplied by 10. One censor famously told Mel Brooks, "If you air this version, you'll never work again." But Brooks wasn't backing down. His philosophy was simple: if you take away the edge, you take away the point. He believed the film had to be offensive. It was mocking racism by exaggerating it, forcing the audience to see how stupid and cruel prejudice actually looked when taken to its extreme. Every slur, every insult, every over-the-top moment was part of that mirror. Brooks refused to dull the blade. When Blazing Saddles hit theaters, it made history. Cleavon Little, who played Sheriff Bart, became one of the first black leads in a major Hollywood comedy. On screen, he was sharp, charming, and cool under pressure. He outsmarted racists, saved the town, and made it all look easy. But off-screen, life wasn't so kind. While the movie mocked racism, some people didn't get the joke. During filming, and even after the release, Cleavon Little started receiving hate mail. Real letters filled with slurs and threats. Some viewers couldn't separate the satire from reality. They saw a black man in a position of authority in a Western, something unheard of at the time, and it made them angry. Mel Brooks later revealed how painful that period was. Little handled it all with grace, never losing his composure, never letting it show on set. He delivered every line with confidence, matching Gene Wilder beat for beat. But behind the scenes, it hurt. He was facing the very thing the movie was mocking: the ignorance, the hatred, the fear. There's a scene in Blazing Saddles that's so outrageous it still shocks people today. The one where a cowboy walks up to a horse and punches it right in the face. The horse drops instantly. The audience gasps, then bursts out laughing. It's so absurd, so sudden, that it feels like something out of a cartoon. But here's the wild part: it wasn't fake. According to Screenopolis, the stunt was completely real. No trick angles, no dummy horse, no special effects. The production brought in a trained stunt horse and a professional stuntman who knew how to choreograph the punch safely. It was done in one take. The horse wasn't hurt. It was trained to fall on cue, but still, it was a real impact, captured on camera. Mel Brooks later said that the scene was meant to be a dare. It was so extreme that audiences would immediately realize, oh, this movie isn't playing by any rules, and he was right. The moment the horse went down, the audience knew anything could happen. Every great comedy needs a great villain, and Blazing Saddles gave us one of the most hilariously pompous in movie history. Hedley Lamar, played by Harvey Korman. Lamar is vain, power-hungry, and painfully self-absorbed. He mispronounces words, forgets people's names, and acts like he's a genius when he clearly isn't. What most people don't know is that this wasn't just a random character. He was revenge. Mel Brooks modeled Hedley Lamar after a real Hollywood executive, though he never said which one. According to those who worked with him, Brooks created Lamar as a caricature of the studio higher-ups who meddled with his projects, took credit for other people's work, and thought they were the smartest people in the room. In a film where everyone was acting like they'd lost their minds, Slim Pickens was the one man who stayed serious. And that's exactly why he was funny. Pickens was a real cowboy before he became an actor. He'd done rodeos, westerns, and action movies for decades. When he signed on to Blazing Saddles, he assumed it was just another traditional western. No one told him it was a spoof. Mel Brooks purposely kept it that way. He wanted Slim to react like a real cowboy would if he were surrounded by total lunatics, because that's what the movie was. So when Pickens played his scenes straight, it wasn't an act. He truly thought he was in a serious film. Every reaction, every confused stare, every muttered "dang," that was lucky, was authentic. What was supposed to be a simple slapstick gag almost became a tragedy. During the filming of one of Blazing Saddles' most chaotic moments, the toll booth explosion, everything went horribly wrong. In the scene, the band of villains trying to reach the town of Rock Ridge are stopped by a random toll booth standing in the middle of the desert. They actually stop, dig through their pockets, and pay the toll. A brilliant piece of absurd comedy that pokes fun at bureaucracy even in the Wild West. Then, as they blast through with dynamite, the booth flies apart in a cloud of dust and debris. On screen, it's hilarious. Behind the scenes, it was terrifying. According to crew accounts, the timing device on the explosives misfired. The dynamite detonated seconds earlier than planned, just after the actors cleared the frame, but before the safety call. Chunks of wood and debris flew dangerously close to the crew. No one was seriously injured, but it was far too close for comfort. Mel Brooks reportedly froze for a moment after the blast. Then, when he realized everyone was safe, he told the team, "That's the take. We're keeping it true to his word. The shot stayed in the film." But from that day on, Brooks implemented stricter safety rules on set. No unnecessary crew near explosives. No retakes on dangerous stunts. Just when audiences thought Blazing Saddles couldn't get any weirder, it delivered one of the most insane finales in movie history. The entire film collapses into total anarchy. Characters breaking out of their own story, running onto other film sets, and suddenly bursting into song and dance. The ending starts like a typical Western showdown. The heroes face off against the villains, guns drawn. But then, mid-fight, the camera pans out, and suddenly the action spills right off the frontier and into another soundstage. Cowboys burst through walls and crash into a completely different movie being filmed next door. A full-blown Hollywood musical, complete with dancers, sequins, and a director yelling at the chaos. Out of nowhere, Dom DeLuise appears as a flamboyant choreographer trying to control a line of tap-dancing cowboys. Within seconds, the barroom brawl from Rock Ridge turns into a riot on a musical set. Dancers are punched, props are smashed, and pies start flying. It's complete nonsense, and it's brilliant. This sequence was almost cut. Studio executives thought it was too confusing and a waste of time, but Brooks ignored them. He filmed it anyway, mostly unscripted, letting DeLuise improvise lines and letting chaos rule the day. The result was a cinematic meltdown that somehow felt like the only possible ending for a movie that never followed the rules. When Mel Brooks finally screened the finished cut for the Warner Brothers executives, there was stunned silence again. Not because they hated it this time, but because they didn't get it. One executive, after sitting through the whole movie, leaned over and asked Brooks with a straight face, "Why did they leave the movie?" Brooks, without missing a beat, said, "Because it's over." That was it. No explanation, no deeper meaning, just the simplest, most rebellious answer possible. And that's what made Blazing Saddles so revolutionary. It didn't need to explain itself. It mocked everything. Hollywood storytelling, the Western genre, and even the audience's expectations.
Where are you headed, cowboy?
Nowhere special.
Nowhere special. I always wanted to go there.
Come on.
That bizarre ending was Brooks' ultimate act of defiance. He didn't just break the fourth wall. He bulldozed it. His characters didn't stay trapped inside the movie because Blazing Saddles wasn't about staying inside anything. It was about escaping from censors, from convention, from every rule that said how a film should be made. Mel Brooks wasn't just directing the chaos, he was starring in it too. In true Brooks fashion, he decided that one role wasn't enough. He ended up playing 3. First, he appeared as Governor William J. Lepetamon, a name as ridiculous as the character himself. Lepetamon was a corrupt, clueless politician surrounded by sycophants, constantly distracted by women and nonsense. The character was a jab at political incompetence, played with Brooks' signature over-the-top flair. Then, Brooks showed up again, this time as a Yiddish-speaking Native American chief. The moment is so bizarre it almost feels like a fever dream. Surrounded by tribesmen, the chief speaks in broken Yiddish, commenting on the absurdity of the white settlers. It's one of those scenes that shouldn't work, yet somehow does, because Brooks plays it with absolute commitment. And finally, in the movie's final act, Brooks reappears once more, this time as the frantic director in the film within a film sequence. It's a cameo that sums up the entire spirit of Blazing Saddles, a man directing his own madness while literally standing in the middle of it. When Blazing Saddles hit theaters in 1974, it didn't just make people laugh, it made history. The film grossed over $119 million, becoming one of the highest-grossing comedies of all time. Critics hailed it as groundbreaking. Audiences couldn't stop quoting it. Lines from the movie became part of pop culture almost overnight. But when award season came around, Hollywood suddenly went quiet. The film received 3 Oscar nominations: Best Supporting Actress for Madeline Kahn, Best Film Editing, and Best Original Song for Blazing Saddles. But when the envelopes were open, it didn't win a single one. According to Wikipedia, the Academy simply wasn't ready to embrace a movie that mixed racial satire, toilet humor, and meta-comedy into a single explosive package. Mel Brooks later joked about it, saying, "They didn't give us Oscars, but they gave us something better. Repeat screenings." And he was right. Blazing Saddles didn't need golden statues. It had already won something far bigger: longevity.